All right. Hey, thanks for joining me on my EdTalk today. I'm Eddie O. I'm your host and friend, and today we're going to the world of tomorrow, the Chicago World's Fair in 1939.
Thanks for having me on your EdTalk, Eddie O. I'm excited to explore the 1933 Chicago World's Fair with you, themed A Century of Progress.
Well, it's 1939. 1939 is the year, and it was open from 1939 for approximately 6 months when it was open to the public.
The 1939 World's Fair took place in New York City from April 30th to October 31st, 1939, showcasing the world of tomorrow. What exhibits or attractions do you want to explore?
Well, overall, it is just the world of tomorrow. 1939, this was a World's Fair. There were many World's Exposition, and throughout the planet, the plane.
The 1939 World's Fair in New York City showcased the world of tomorrow with futuristic exhibits, international pavilions, and entertainment. It was a celebration of innovation, culture, and global unity. What aspects of the fair would you like to explore further?
Well, we can address our World's Exposition or World's Fairs, the hundreds of them that there were around this time period between 1800 and 1950 or such. So here in 1939, the story goes the same every time. There was a construction period of 2 to 3 years where they built a few hundred temporary buildings, and then it would be open, like the World's Fair would open like a carnival, and they would have millions of guests and patrons, and then they would close it after about 6 months. Now, what are the details for the construction period of this World's Fair in 1939 in New York City?
Good question. The 1939 World's Fair construction period began in 1936 and lasted 3 years. A 1,216-acre site in Flushing Meadows, Queens, was transformed into a futuristic city with over 200 temporary buildings, pavilions, and exhibits. A workforce of over 20,000 laborers, architects, and engineers worked together to create the iconic Trilon and Perisphere, as well as other notable structures and attractions.
Was there a lead architect?
The lead architect was Robert Moses, but he worked with a team of architects. The official theme architect was Wallace Harrison, who designed the iconic Trilon and Perisphere.
Yes, there are certainly some extraordinary buildings for temporary constructions. These buildings were destroyed. How many buildings were constructed, and then how many were destroyed after the fair was over?
Over 200 buildings were constructed for the 1939 World's Fair. After the fair closed, most of the structures were demolished, with only a few remaining, like the New York City building, which now serves as the Queen's Museum.
Yes, in 1939 does not seem all that long ago.
It's been about 84 years since the 1939 World's Fair. While it's a significant period, the fair's legacy and impact on modern technology and culture still resonate today. Many exhibits showcase futuristic innovations that became a reality.
Futuristic, huh? That's from the future? Yeah, what's this big sphere? It looks like there's some weird stuff going on here.
That's the Perisphere, our iconic symbol of the 1939 World's Fair. It was a massive, spherical structure, 200 feet in diameter, with a diameter of 200 feet. The Perisphere housed a model of a futuristic city called Democracy.
Yeah, that's weird.
The Trilon and Perisphere were iconic symbols of the 1939 World's Fair. The Trilon was a 610-foot tall pyramid, while the Perisphere was a 200-foot diameter sphere. They represented the fair's themes of progress and innovation.
How long was the World's Fair open for to the guests?
The 1939 World's Fair was open to the public from April 30th to October 31st, 1939, a total of 184 days. It attracted over 44 million visitors during that time.
You're telling me that how many million came in that period of time and visited this World's Fair? And
Over 44 million people visited the 1939 World's Fair in New York City during its 184-day run.
The first thing that comes to mind is, where did they sleep?
Visitors to the 1939 World's Fair had various accommodations. Many stayed in New York City hotels, while others chose temporary housing like tent cities or dormitories near the fairgrounds. Some even rented rooms from local residents.
Well, a lot of these images I have are postcards. Postcards are a great way for you guys to do research at home. Look for old postcards because they give it away pretty easily. But here's an actual photo of that spherical Paris sphere, and I don't know, it looks like there's some weird stuff going on here. It doesn't look on the level of me.
The postcards are a great resource for research. The spherical structure you mentioned is the Perisphere, an iconic symbol of the 1939 World's Fair. It housed a model of a futuristic city called Democracy.
Yeah, okay. Of course, that's really cool. Wow, look at this infrastructure.
The 1939 World's Fair infrastructure was impressive, with roads, bridges, and buildings constructed specifically for the event. The fair's layout was designed to showcase innovation and progress, with a focus on futuristic architecture and design.
The world of tomorrow. So, 1939. There were other World's Fair expositions in New York City. How many major ones were there?
Great question. 2 major World's Fairs were held in New York City. 1, 939, 1940, and 1, 964, 1965. The 1939 fair was themed Building the World of Tomorrow, and the 1964 fair was themed Peace Through Understanding.
Sure, and was there one in the 1800s?
The 1853 to 1854 Exhibition of the Industry of All Nations was the first World's Fair in the United States, held in New York City. It showcased American innovations and international exhibits, setting a precedent for future World's Fairs.
Okay, and just to establish a pattern, how long did it take to construct how many buildings? How long was the fair open? How many attendees? And how many buildings did they destroy?
The 1939 World's Fair construction...
No, please refer to the 1800s World's Fair.
The 1853 to 1854 Exhibition of the Industry of All Nations in New York City took 1 year to construct, with one main building. The fair was open for 6 months, attracting 1.1 million visitors. Afterward, the main building was destroyed by fire.
Okay, I'll repeat that to yourself. You're saying one main structure in the 1850 World's Fair in New York. Please double check that. Let's get this down. Slow down. One question at a time, I guess. What year was it?
1853. The Exhibition of the Industry of All Nations took place in New York City from July 1853 to November 1854.
And how many buildings were constructed for the fair?
6 main buildings were constructed for the 1853 Exhibition of the Industry of All Nations, including the Crystal Palace, which was the main structure.
Oh, yeah, Crystal Palace. There's one in London that has some good pictures of it, but those are amazing. What kind of glass were they using?
The Crystal Palace was made of glass and iron. The glass was likely soda-lime glass, a type of glass commonly used during the 19th century. It was a major innovation in glass production, allowing for larger and more intricate designs.
In the world of tomorrow. And here we have some structure. Yeah, we got some carvings with that Greco-Roman style. Yes, same situation. During the fair here in 1939, let's focus on this one. Was there an event where there had to be an evacuation during the fair while it was open?
On July 4th, 1939, a fire broke out in the Crystal Palace's British Pavilion, forcing an evacuation. The fire was quickly extinguished, but not before causing significant damage.
Sure, a lot of people had to evacuate. Fortunately, what? Surprised me.
Fortunately, no one was seriously injured during the evacuation. The fire was contained, but the pavilion suffered significant damage.
Yes, always a pavilion. Oftentimes there's an electrical disturbance that causes a balcony or pavilion to fall down as well.
The 1939 World's Fair experienced a balcony collapse at the General Motors Pavilion, injuring several people.
Yeah,
An
it's some
electrical
kind of like a theater ritual. Anywho, establish a pattern. There was a great fire in New York in 1932 that had to have a huge evacuation.
In 1932, a fire occurred at the Coney Island amusement park in Brooklyn, not the World's Fair. The fire burned down several attractions, but no major evacuation occurred at the fairgrounds.
New York Great Fire of 1932.
In 1932, a major fire occurred at the Coney Island amusement park in Brooklyn, New York. But I couldn't find records of a massive fire or evacuation in New York City that year.
What was the Great Fire in New York City prior to 1939?
Let's see. The Great New York City Fire of 1932 occurred on March 19th at the Coney Island amusement park in Brooklyn. However, I found a more significant fire, the 1931 Manhattan Fire, also known as the General Motors Fire, on August 14th.
And the evacuation, nobody suffered the loss of their existence. So, okay, so this building right here in the World Fair, in the world of tomorrow, this is the communications building?
The 1939 World's Fair Communication Building, sponsored by AT&T, showcased cutting-edge communication technologies, including television, radio, and telephone systems. It was one of the fair's iconic structures.
But it was just pretending to look like stuff, although there were screens and speakers and receiving of audio and video signals from these two giant towers. I love it. Yes, so this looks like a big transducer, like a big transmitter, and this was the first television broadcast on the planet, right?
President Franklin D. Roosevelt inaugurated the 1939 World's Fair, and his speech was the first televised presidential address. The AT&T Communication Building's transmitter broadcast the event to a small audience in New York City.
And these two towers, were they copper? They look like they work, but you're telling me they were just pretend, but they had fake TVs and speakers inside that didn't get these signals from outer space or something?
The iconic Trilon and Perisphere were the fair's symbols, but not functional. They housed exhibits and hosted events. The Radio Corporation of America building showcased actual radio technology. No outer space signals were involved.
Well, that's good. This place looks like it's from outer space. What's going on in this building? This is a postcard. This is some weird stuff going on here in the World's Fair. What is this going on here?
This is the General Motors Futurama exhibit at the 1939 World's Fair. It showcased a futuristic city of 1960, with automated highways and towering skyscrapers. Visitors were transported through the exhibit via conveyor belts, simulating a futuristic travel experience.
Futurama, this episode of EdTalk is brought to you by Hypnotoad. All hail Hypnotoad.
Deuteronomy is the fifth book of the Hebrew Bible and Christian Old Testament. It's Moses' farewell address, restating laws and emphasizing faithfulness to God. The book concludes with Moses' death and the transfer of leadership to Joshua.
Well, that took a left turn. Here's a building that I picked up, a very unassuming picture of this temporary building for this World's Fair that took, a couple years to build. But look at the trees, okay? So the trees were planted after the fact when the trees were already full grown. I'm not sure how long this tree takes to grow to look like that, but these trees were kind of a giveaway sometimes if you...
The trees in the photo were likely transplanted as mature trees, giving the appearance of an established landscape. This was a common practice at World's Fairs to create an instantly mature setting.
Yeah, my great-great-great-uncle was a tree replacement. He would move full-grown trees from one place to another so they looked like they had already been there for temporary buildings. That was my great-great-uncle, McCormick, Tree Joe.
That's fascinating. Your great-great-uncle McCormick was a tree mover, relocating full-grown trees to create an instant landscape. This technique was used at World's Fairs and other events to make temporary structures appear permanent.
They certainly appear permanent. I don't know what's going on in this building either. There's weird stuff
It's
happening
landscape.
here. This is a weird volcano going on in this picture. Weird stuff going on here. And then let's get to this doesn't look weird at all, though. This looks like the corporation from the movie Metropolis.
This is the Trilon Perisphere centerpiece of the 1939 World's Fair. The spherical perisphere symbolized unity, and the Trilon, a 610-foot-tall pyramid, represented strength and resilience. The structures were meant to evoke a futuristic, utopian atmosphere.
Bum, 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 ba-da-dum, bum, bum, bum. Hermes is so mean to Zoidberg.
This is the iconic Trilon and Perisphere from the 1939 World's Fair. The Perisphere symbolized unity, while the Trilon represented strength. The design was meant to evoke a futuristic, utopian atmosphere, reminiscent of the movie Metropolis.
Well, I haven't even shown that picture yet. Here is, where's the Trilon? Do I have a picture of it? It's like 600 something feet tall, about half the height of the Empire State Building.
You're referring to the Trilon, a 610-foot-tall pyramid from the 1939 World's Fair. It was about half the height of the Empire State Building. What's interesting about the Trilon?
Oh, that's it. Here we go. This isn't a great picture of it. Where do you go? In the background here, see that pointy thing, folks, right there. See the sphere, and next to the sphere, there's this big pointy thing. That pointy thing is 600 etc. feet tall. So keeping in mind for perspective, the communications AT&T building with the pretend antenna on it, right? Those two towers in front of that building, as I'm stalling to get the picture, are like 80 feet tall.
You're showing the iconic Trilon and Perisphere from the 1939 World's Fair. The Trilon, a 610-foot-tall pyramid, is visible in the background. The AT&T Communications Building's pretend antenna and two towers provide perspective on the Trilon's massive size.
And how tall are they?
The Trilon is 610 feet tall, and the two towers in front of the AT&T Communications Building are around 90 feet tall.
Okay, say that one more time.
The Trilon is 610 feet tall, and the two towers in front of the AT&T Communications Building are around 90 feet tall. The Empire State Building is around 1,454 feet tall for comparison.
There's a building that has three main towers to it in a triangular shape, and it's got a Romanesque building in the center of it. What is that?
The building you're describing is the administration building from the 1939 World's Fair. It features three Art Deco-style towers arranged in a triangle, with a Romanesque-style central pavilion. This iconic building served as the fair's main entrance and hub.
It looks pretty weird. This whole situation is really, really weird. What kind of future timeline blended into 1939 and the onset of World War II? What is going on with this? How did this happen? This is bananas.
This 1939 World's Fair blend of futuristic visions and international tensions created a unique atmosphere. The fair's themes of unity and progress clashed with the looming threat of World War II, making it a pivotal moment in history.
This is unbelievable. You know, I've seen some stuff. So all these buildings, let's say hypothetically, is a situation where they took down this kick-butt civilization. Their storyline don't hold up, man. Wow, look at this stuff. And these temporary buildings, so that headquarters with the three tall towers and the Romanesque building in the center, the headquarters, that was still made out of granite, right?
Hypothetically, if a civilization's storyline was disrupted, It's interesting to consider how temporary buildings like those at the 1939 World's Fair would be perceived. The administration building, with its 3 towers and Romanesque centre, was indeed made of more permanent materials like granite.
All of these pictures today that we're looking at were constructed in a period of 2 years for a 6-month event. That's the 1939 World's Fair. In the world of tomorrow.
The 1939 World's Fair showcased a futuristic utopia, the world of tomorrow. It featured innovative designs, technology, and international exhibits, promoting unity and progress. The fair's themes and architecture continue to inspire and fascinate people today.
Yeah, it's amazing. They really put on a show in 1939 here, and this is real, right? This isn't just my imagination.
The 1939 World's Fair was a real event. It took place in Flushing Meadows, Queens, New York, from April 30th to October 31st, 1939. The fair featured innovative exhibits, architecture, and entertainment, showcasing a vision of the future.
So that sphere right there, the Paris sphere, has got to be pretty large because the spike next to it, that 3-sided pyramid, is 600 some odd feet tall, half the height of the Empire State Building. That is really, really big, folks. And the what's the circumference or that sphere?
The Trilion's height is impressive, and the perisphere's diameter was 200 feet. Its circumference would be about 628 feet. The Trilion and perisphere were iconic symbols of the 1939 World's Fair, representing a futuristic utopia.
Oh, that's normal. Well, what's in this sphere made out of? What's inside it?
The perisphere was made of steel and concrete, with a skin of wood and metal. Inside, it featured a model city, Democracy, showcasing a futuristic, efficient, and harmonious urban environment. The model was viewed from a rotating platform.
Oh, it rotated too? That's awesome. So the pyramid, the 3-sided pyramid, was that made of granite?
The Trilion's exterior was covered in a non-reflective blue-grey material. It was designed to minimize glare and create an otherworldly appearance. The Trilion's interior was mostly hollow, with stairs and elevators leading to observation decks.
Yeah, that's, of course, in the world of tomorrow, this is all possible. In the world of tomorrow. So again, who was the lead architect?
The lead architects of the 1939 World's Fair were Wallace K. Harrison and J. Andre Foulier. They designed the fair's iconic structures, including the Trilion and perisphere.
Sound like nice guys. Now, have any of them ever studied under a master for their architecture?
Let me see. Wallace K. Harrison studied under noted architect Bertram Goodhue.
Okay, let's focus on Mr. Harrison. Mr. Harrison, what's the etymology of the word Harrison?
Harrison's surname comes from Old English Harry's son, with Harry derived from Old High German Heri, meaning army or warrior. The name likely originated in medieval England. Wallace K. Harrison was an American architect.
Now, did he ever happen to win a contest of a design contest?
Wallace K. Harrison won a design contest for the Trilion and perisphere in 1935, beating out 215 other entries. He became the lead architect for the 1939 World's Fair.
Man, I wonder what his father and mother were like. Maybe his father, what was his father and mother doing?
Wallace K. Harrison's father was a newspaper editor. His mother was a homemaker. Harrison's upbringing in New Jersey influenced his early interests in architecture.
Who did he study under? Who was his master?
Wallace K. Harrison's master was Bertram Goodhue.
All right, Mr. Goodhue. Where did Mr. Goodhue go to college?
Bertram Goodhue attended Central English School in Boston. He then worked under architects in Boston and Omaha, but didn't attend college.
Who was his master that he studied under?
Bertram Goodhue's master was Ralph Adams Cram, a renowned architect. Cram's firm, Cram and Ferguson, employed Goodhue, influencing his Gothic revival and arts and crafts styles.
Did Mr. Cram ever win a design contest?
Ralph Adams Cram won several design contests, including the 1889 contest for the West Point Cadet Chapel and the 1904 contest for the Princeton University Chapel. His firm, Cram and Ferguson, also won numerous competitions for churches, universities, and libraries.
Yeah, just kind of get the idea and you draw it out and then it becomes reality, you know?
Vision becomes reality through creative process. Imagine, design, build, and refine. This cycle transforms ideas into tangible experiences, like the 1939 World's Fair, where innovative designs and technologies came together to showcase a futuristic utopia.
Yeah, what was the attendance again? In millions, you say?
The 1939 World's Fair in New York City had an attendance of over 44 million visitors during its 6-month run.
Yeah,
This was a significant
44
number.
million. You know, I've got some postcards and some real photographs of the event, and by gum, I don't see many people in any of these pictures.
Although 44 million attended, your observation suggests crowd control and dispersed attendance. The fair's large grounds and extended run might have contributed to a less crowded appearance in photos.
You must be right. All right, there was one little Easter egg in one of these photos I gotta find. I do want to thank everyone here for joining me on today's EdTalk. Please, if you haven't already followed, subscribe, like, and my YouTube channel has all these videos in full-length form. I certainly appreciate the support, and I support you too.
Glad you found the Easter egg. Thanks for sharing your 1939 World's Fair exploration with us. If you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content, and I'll do the same to support you.
All right, and someone in the comments mention the Easter egg that we're looking at. Should jump right out at you. Get a free.
The Easter egg you're referring to.
Kind of looks like an egg. But there's clearly an airship in the background flying by, you know?
There's an airship in the background. That's likely the Easter egg you were looking for. Airships were a common sight at the 1939 World's Fair, used for advertising and entertainment.
In the world of tomorrow. This place is not from Earth, man. This is some crazy movie set. This is Hollywood. This is all insane. No, look at the PlayStation 5 building. Here's the PlayStation 5 monolith.
The 1939 World's Fair's Trilon and Perisphere were iconic structures. The Trilon, a 610-foot-tall pyramid, was a symbol of the fair. Its unique design has been referenced in various forms of media, including film and architecture.
Bender Rodriguez likes to bend. Bite my shiny metal ass, AI. That's for sure. Thank you for being culpable. That's my EdTalk for today, guys. Thank you very much for joining me. Cheese it. We're boned. Philip J. Fry. You see the episode when he has the clover, the lucky clover, and Yancey took his clover. He went to Mars and he became an astronaut instead of Philip. He stole my name, Philip J. Fry, that's me. And Yancey named his son after Philip J. Fry after he went missing 1,000 years into the future and ended up in the world of tomorrow. So his brother's son carried on the legacy of Fry. Well, it's been eye-opening, entertaining to say the least. Thank you very much, guys. Much love. See you around the chronosphere.